Okay, Sean. So first, talk a little bit about your story and how you got into the world of self-development.
Yeah, man, it's actually it's a pretty wild story, and
Mhm.
I'll go back to the start from growing up.
Yeah.
I was always a pretty talented kid in like sports and stuff. I had a lot of friends, and
Hmm.
I had a pretty privileged life, you would say. But I always had like underlining anxiety and OCD that no one really knew about.
Hmm.
So my whole life I was pretty into self-improvement and stuff, but I never really had a clear vision of what I wanted, and I never really lived past the moment like a lot of people do
Yeah.
in their lives. So I was kind of just getting by because of like who I was, and just because I was a friendly kid, I was good at sports, and I never really had to go out of my way to achieve anything per
Hmm.
se. And I never really lived up to my potential. So actually at the age of 17, I could have went professional in England to play soccer, and I kind of just wanted to go to college and party because that's what I was all about. I was all about
Yeah.
just living in the moment. I had no clear vision of my goal. I thought that yeah, one day I'm going to be a professional soccer player, but I didn't know how I was going to get there or anything. And like I said, I had this anxiety and OCD in my head, so I was very introverted. So I
Hmm.
was kind of always in my own world. I guess you could say like borderline autistic, but like I never really was diagnosed for anything, but I've always been very introverted and in my head while others are more outward. But
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that.
yeah, and so it kind of put me in my own little world of like never, just being completely in the moment, which is cool, but as we'll talk about later, it can really get you into a bunch of trouble in the end.
Hmm.
So I went to college instead. I obviously went to play soccer too. It's a pretty good school, Division 1, and I played for 4 years, but I was just caught up in partying and girls, and I didn't really think about anything, and I had no interest in my major, which was mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
So I was that kid that was just getting by. And I even remember one teacher, she said to me, she was like, I'm worried about you because you don't pay attention in class, but you get good grades. And what are you going to do when you graduate? And I never thought about it like one
Yeah.
time. I never thought what I was going to do when I graduated. I just thought it would all work out. And eventually, as you know it, life threw me a curveball. So this is where the story gets a little weird and kind of unique. Is when I was a senior in college, right before my senior year, I actually ended up at a party and I ingested a brownie laced with weed,
Hmm.
and it gave me like a 5 hour long panic attack where I felt like I lost my mind. Like I never smoked or anything. I never did drugs or anything.
Yeah.
So this sent me into a world that like I would never wish upon my worst enemy. I can't even explain it, but what this did was it it set my amygdala, which is the part of your brain that controls your fear and anxiety, into
Hmm.
a permanently stuck on position.
Yeah.
And I already had OCD and repetitive obsessive thoughts and everything. So coupled with that, I was for the, like literally for the next 6 months after that, I was pretty much unfunctional. I almost didn't go back to school. I was on multiple medications just to survive. I started having panic attacks all the time, and like I was just foggy minded all the time. I couldn't think straight. I was so messed up. Like I can't even like just talking about it like makes me like quiver. I can't even explain it because no one who hasn't been through anything like that would ever really get it. And it sounds weird
Yeah.
just saying it right now, but long story short, I'm not going to go into the details, but I ended up for the next 3 years just having this ridiculously ruthless anxiety disorder.
Hmm.
And it got to the point where I couldn't leave my house at one point and I was on all these medications, and I actually went back to school right after. And
Yeah.
somehow I got through school. No one knew anything was wrong with me. I kind of put on a pretty face from the outside, smiled, and just was in like a nightmare inside my own head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was pretty traumatic. And throughout my recovery, I was just continuing to try to party and be who I was before. I was really trying to hold on to who I was. I was still playing soccer, but eventually it came down to it was like I finished school, I moved back home, and I guess a year later I was just still a mess. And I decided at that moment, it was just like one day I decided, I was like, you know, I'm not who I was before. I'm not going to keep trying to be who I was before. So I put down, I just stopped with everything. I stopped drinking. I stopped, you know, I even stopped watching porn and stuff. And I started eating ridiculously healthy. And I was like, I just said to myself that I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to get better. And I'm going to do anything it takes. And this is important because I never, ever for a second during this whole experience, even like the month after when I was in and out of the ER, because I was just like, my world was like falling apart.
Yeah.
I never once dropped the belief that I was going to be better and that this was going to be like the best thing that ever happened to me. And like, I was going to turn it into a positive. And
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know,
huge.
I don't know where that comes from, but it was just instilled in me, maybe from playing sports my whole life. And it's just, I just never didn't have that attitude. I always believed growing up that I was going to be like the best soccer player in my town and in my school. And I always believed when this happened that I was going to overcome it. So I'd say about 2 years ago is when I made that decision to take control of my life. And I knew.
Was there anything that triggered that, or did you just one day wake up and say, I'm tired of this?
I was just, I was constantly always trying to heal. And this is why I became so obsessed with self-improvement, is I was constantly researching new ways and trying new like drugs and medicines. But I was still drinking and partying. And my hangovers got to the point that if I drank the night before, even 3 beers, I would wake up and be shaking and my vision would be blurry. And I couldn't even get out of bed because my nervous system was just so messed up. And
yeah.
So I decided to heal myself, and it was about 2 years ago. And so I just dropped everything and I started to move forward. And about 6 months after that, I ended up having another massive panic attack, like just walking. I guess it was kind of like all the stress from the last 4 years and everything, or I guess it was 2.5 years at this point, just all accumulated. Even after quitting drinking and everything, it just all hit me at the same time, because at this point, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I got a job at a mechanical engineering firm.
Yeah.
And I was working my ass off at this mechanical engineering firm because I had that degree, and I was a mess, you know, like I was just always in my head, like just trying to act normal, but I was anxious all the time. And I was drug free at this point, wasn't on any anxiety medication because I knew that wasn't going to help me.
Yeah.
So I guess going cold turkey off of that, going cold turkey off of drinking, you know, and everything, just kind of everything caught up to me.
Yeah.
And at this point, I got shingles. And I couldn't get out of bed for like a month. Like I was that just frazzled. My nervous system was so messed up, but I was still obsessed with improving my life. And this was about 1.5 years ago. So I was literally at ground zero.
Yeah.
I was at the lowest point like that I could ever imagine anyone being, like anxiety wise or energy level wise. And all I could do was stay home in bed. And I decided to start a website to track my recovery. This is like what started everything that I'm into now. I decided to start a website that was going to track my recovery from like the lowest of the low to like traveling the world and sleeping with beautiful women and making tons of money, because I still believed that this was going to happen. I knew it, you know, I knew it. I was like, all right, sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards. And I knew that no matter what, I was going to do what I had to do to recover. So at this point I was eating ridiculously healthy. It wasn't drinking. I haven't drank in 2 years. I was, you know, I couldn't exercise because I was stuck in bed, but every day I would just watch videos on how to build websites and everything. And I built this website, and in about a month it was up and running, and it was terrible. But I did it. I started somewhere, which is like a huge key to doing anything.
Just exactly.
You know, like I'll talk about this later, but I ended up going back to work a month later because I could actually get out of bed. You know, I just told my colleagues that I had like shingles and that was the reason I was out.
Yeah.
And I kind of just hid everything from everyone because I'm not going to go around telling this story to people. They look at me like I'm crazy. And I guess I guess that, yeah, that's about a year and a half ago. I was driving home, and every night I would be visualizing being better and having a lot of money and like having energy to go running around and stuff. And I believe that when you do this and you align your beliefs and your thoughts and your goals with your actions, like that's when you start to really get good ideas and manifest things. And I was just driving home from work one day, and the idea for MenProvement popped into my head. Because during this whole time, I like at this point, my brain functioning never was off. Like I was always still very intelligent, and all I was doing was studying health and studying fitness and ways to improve your life just to be able to leave my bed, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like out of necessity. So I was pretty much an expert at all this stuff already. And I was watching Wayne Dyer videos constantly about like visualizing your life and manifesting your life. So by necessity, I became like this completely different person. And I kind of let go of the old person that I was. And fast forward a year from there, I actually stumbled across, I got better and better every month. And I stumbled across this program, which was like a godsend. And it was like a chronic fatigue syndrome recovery program called the Gupta amygdala retraining program. And it actually retrains your amygdala to stop the anxiety loop that causes anxiety and fatigue. So it's good for people with anxiety. And 6 months later from that is where we are now. So during this whole time, I kept building MenProvement.
Yeah.
And about 6 months ago, I started that program, and MenProvement was getting about 3,000 to 5,000 visitors a day and was making me, you know, a couple $100 to $1,000 a month, give or take. And I saved up about $15,000 for my engineering job. And I was just like, you know what, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling a lot better. I was functional, but at this point I was still anxious. You know, I never really left my house or went to work. So it was like either work or my house. I couldn't go out in the city or a bar without being anxious. But I was like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go for it. Like, I'm going to continue to heal. I'm going to build this website to like ridiculous levels, and I'm going to be a traveling entrepreneur, and I'm going to travel the world and do things that, you know, right now I can't do. And this is the first step, because if I don't take a step, I'm not going to do it. You know, I'm going to be stuck in this job for the rest of my life. So I just quit my job and I started this program, and this program is amazing. And within a month, I was like 80% better than I was before starting this program.
Wow.
And now I'm here talking to you right now, 6 months from that, 4 years from the initial incident, about almost 4.5 years from the initial incident. And I'm better than, I could say that I'm better than I ever was, but I still have lingering issues with anxiety. And if I'm doing something that I've never done, but like I had to slowly keep expanding my comfort zone from being able to leave my house to being able to go to bars, to being able to go to the city. But if I were to go and give a speech in front of 1,000 people right now, I'd be very anxious. But the point is that as if I did it 5 times, then I'd be fine and be able to do it. So I'm continuing to expand my comfort zone, but my mindset and my skill set has grown over 4 years of just pure dedication to it. And now I'm gotten to the point where I got to baseline, and I was like, all right, I'm at baseline now. That was probably, like I said, 6 months ago. Now I want to get to the point where I'm living like in the top 1%, and I'm achieving like insane levels of energy and performance, and I'm clear, and I can manifesting my destiny and teaching people how to do the same. So now I'm not studying how to recover anymore. I'm studying how to achieve peak performance, and I've been doing that for about a year. And it's just amazing how far I've come. And MenProvement is all about helping men improve their lives, not just in the physical sense of getting a 6-pack and getting girls, but truly like improve their mindsets and to be able to get girls and to get 6-packs, because that's where it all starts. Truly believe that. But we do teach people all the applicable stuff, because I've been like teaching myself how to meet women and approach women, and everything I write about, I do myself, and I interview the biggest experts. And it's just been amazing. It's been a gift, and I'm so grateful for it. And the last 4 years has been a wild roller coaster, but I wouldn't change it because it's got me to where I am today. And now MenProvement.com it's on the map, and it's getting 20,000 men a day, and it's my full-time living. So I'm on my way to achieving my goals. And that's my story. That's what brings me here today. And I'm sorry it was so long, but
no, that was perfect. Yeah,
it's hard to keep it short.
No, thanks for sharing with us. I think it's interesting that a lot of people that are that end up being super successful and, top performers, it seems like a lot of them have some kind of similar story where they basically, their life falls apart in some sense. And it creates this awareness and this desire for growth, this desire to even just become normal. And then beyond that, just
Yeah.
continuing to grow and improve themselves.
Yeah, something that really inspired me was watching a TED talk of someone who had post-concussion syndrome,
Hmm.
which is probably similar to what I had in a different sense. Like mine was, I guess my nervous system was all messed up, and their brain is all messed up. And for 2 years, she couldn't leave the house or anything, and she couldn't read, she couldn't watch TV, and she couldn't even look at like sensitive light. So because it was just all horribly terrible to her. She would have headaches, and a lot of people with post-concussion syndrome, they really don't know where to turn, and they start thinking about suicide and stuff like this. And she said for 2 years, that's all she did was like she couldn't do anything except lay there. But like she would make it a game and see like every day she could not think like negatively would be like a point, and every time she did this it would be a point. And she healed, and she talks about the phenomenon that you were just talking about of post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
Which is like when someone recovers from a traumatic experience, it changes their life, and they don't want to just be average anymore. They can't just walk around the world average anymore because they're so happy to feel good. They want to really make the most and get like take life by the reins. And one of my favorite quotes is that extraordinary hardships often prepare ordinary people for extraordinary destinies.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, but I like to believe that you don't need to go through an insane hardship to live an incredible life.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is what my mission is now, is to help as many people not have to, hit rock bottom and be able to take their life from average to exceptional wherever they are. So that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for one thing, we can learn from other people's hardships, right? We don't have to go through it ourselves.
Mm. Definitely. Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, like honestly. But yeah, if it's up to, there's a lot of things that you can do to get into that mind frame, and that's, I guess, what we can talk about today.
Well, yeah, so, out of everything you've learned so far, you've sort of established these core principles of self-improvement. Can you kind of, list those out for us, and then we'll go into each of them individually and talk about them in detail?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Throughout the past 4 years, I've just studied some of the most amazing people, and I've come up with some of my own ideologies, but I've just taken like out of thousands of things that I've learned, like these top 15 things. And I'm like, yeah, these are the ones, these are what really I believe if people can instill in themselves, they can accomplish anything. So yeah, I'll list through them quickly. Yeah. And then we'll go through and talk about each one.
All right.
So number one is the thought that you become what you think about and focus on, essentially, over the long term. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. Number two is that you should, in life, if you want to achieve something great, you should be focusing more on one thing rather than many things. And it's kind of vague, but as you said, we'll break it down.
Well, yeah, focus, right?
Yeah. The third one is to achieve anything, we first must have a clear vision of what we want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Number four is to stay motivated to achieve that. You must really know why you want to do it and have a powerful, motivating why.
Mm-hmm.
Number five is that you should always set your big goals, and we'll talk about how to do that. But you should only ever focus on what you can do today, and even more specifically, what you can do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Number seven or number six is that goal and your life's purpose is what makes you, in my mind, a man, and it should come before everything, or else you may feel like you're doing people the right thing by not putting your purpose before them, but at that point you're doing people an injustice.
I agree.
Number seven is getting there or not. At the micro level, all of your success and whether you do achieve your goals or not comes down to habits.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8 is that the true success, and again, whether you get there or not, comes down to nothing more than reps and miles of those habits.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fancy. So we'll get into that. Number 9 is never fear failing or failure, because the more you fail along the way, the better.
The more you learn, right?
Yeah. Number 10 is to be conscious of your edge and your limitations, truly know what they are, and then live just beyond them.
Mm-hmm.
Number 11 is that success takes a long time and a lot of trial and error, but this is completely lost and forgotten in today's world. But grasping this is key to succeeding.
Yeah.
Number 12 is, for that reason, you have to enjoy the process and find joy in the journey, because if you keep waiting to be happy when you reach your end goal, then you probably never will be. 13 is to never seek to be complete, or else you'll never truly live, because I truly believe that nothing's ever complete. You're never going to be complete. And if you keep seeking that absolution, you're just always going to be looking. 14 is to 14 and 15 kind of go into ways to live your life more, and it's pull happiness. Actually, the one I just said was supposed to be the last one, but
Okay.
these two are supposed to jump before it. It's that pull all your happiness from within and fulfillment from within. All your fulfillment should come from the inside, and you should never seek fulfillment or validation from the outside world. And this is just ways to live your life. You should always, give as much as you can, even when you feel like you don't have anything to give. You should never be reactive. You should be responsive. And these are just principles to taking the journey and finding happiness in the journey. And then number 14, or technically now number 15, is that you can't change the way you act by thinking, but you can change the way you think through actions. And those are right now what I believe to be some of the most important core principles out of everything I've learned in my journey.
Yeah, I would agree with you. They sound, from what I've learned so far, they sound on point. All right, so let's go back to the beginning to number 1, and we'll break that down and talk about that.
Yeah, number 1 is that you truly become what you think about and focus on. And this sounds to people like the law of attraction, because it is, but people think it's just hoo-ha and all that. But there's actually science to it. And I'd like to talk quickly about the science and then why you should focus on what you want. But
yeah,
essentially during your waking life, your brain is being bombarded constantly by over 128 billion bits of sensory information at any time. And your subconscious is what is getting hit by all these things, and it can only truly handle, or your conscious brain can only truly handle about like 100 bits out of this 128 billion bits of information. So there's something in your brain called the reticular activating system. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it's kind of a filter for what gets into your subconscious mind, or your conscious brain. It filters what comes in from the 128 billion bits of information into your subconscious mind, into your conscious brain. So it's that filter that only lets in 100 bits of information at any time. And essentially what this means is that if you're always focusing on things that are negative, like if you're constantly believing that you are, let's say that you're ugly and you're unattractive and that nobody finds you attractive, then by the nature of this, you are programming your reticular activating system to notice these things.
Yeah.
So out of all the things that are happening in the world, the 128 billion bits of information, you're only going to ever be consciously aware of 100 of them. So you're going to notice things that reaffirm your belief system. That's all you're going to find in your life. And this is why I believe that when you focus your thoughts on your actions, so if you want to become a rich entrepreneur and that's all you ever think about, when you're out, you're going to notice things. You're going to see that book in the corner that that gives you your big idea, or you're going to bump into that person that is there to help you along the way. And I think this is how the law of attraction works. And I know people just say, yeah, you know, think about what you want and everything and it will come true. But I think there's truly science behind it. So for me, if you're focusing on negative things and things that you don't want in your life, that's what you're going to find in your life, because you're actually programming your brain to notice these things. So I say always 100% focus and on what you want and think about what you want, and just it should be in your mind all the time, and your belief system should be what you want to believe. You can do it with affirmations on your walls and things like this. You can do it with visualization, visualizing yourself achieving your goals. But once you really get this and it becomes an automatic habit, which we'll talk about later, that's when things start to really unravel for your goals. And this is how everyone does it.
So would you say affirmations and visualization are the best ways to practically approach this?
Yeah, I truly think that, you know, we'll talk about, it will all kind of come together, because we'll talk about setting goals, but you should, and having a clear vision of what you want, but you should have a clear vision of what you want. You should set your goals, and then you should align your beliefs. You know, you should believe beyond any doubt that you're going to achieve these goals. You should be constantly self-educating about these goals, learning about this stuff. So it's all you're thinking about. You should be visualizing yourself achieving these goals. And yeah, you should be affirming it, like, I am, you know, an entrepreneur. I travel the world and I do it effortlessly, and like these, you know, things like this through your goals. And there's so many different ways to do it, but essentially just your mind should be focused 95% on what you want, and the other should be like the stuff in your life that you need to focus on, like doing grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Can't let doubt in, you know. At first it's hard, but it becomes easy. All right. So that takes us right into point 2, which is that you should have a soul thought versus many different thoughts. And I got this from Thomas Edison, actually, because back in the day, he used to work like 20 hours a day, and he was a machine. He was inventing all these stuff. He commercialized the light bulb. He was just one of the greatest men who ever lived. And when someone asked him, they were like, Thomas, don't you think you're setting the bar high for success, working 20 hours a day, doing all these things? And he said, no, you know, I honestly don't think that I'm doing anything differently from anything else, from any other guy. You know, I'm paraphrasing here. I don't know the exact quote, but he says that every man out there is thinking about something at any different time. Yeah. The only difference between me and them is that I'm only thinking about one thing and they're thinking about millions. So this really spoke to me, because if you're sitting around, you're worrying about all this bullshit, you're thinking about a million things, you've got eggs all in tons of baskets, you got backup plans, and you're like, you know, I don't even know how to explain it, but you're worrying about the mundane issues of life, like most people, and you've got a million things on your mind. Then there's guys like Thomas Edison who are thinking about one thing constantly, and this is training your brain. And like, that's what I'm doing. Always, it's all I'm ever thinking about is how I can grow my business, how I can keep improving myself. And that is what you should be focusing on. Your goals should just take up all your thoughts, and it should consume your life. And it's about building your life around your goals. And it's, once again, it's about aligning your thoughts, your actions, and your beliefs, and just becoming your goals and becoming what you want to be, instead of just thinking about it and then going and worrying about other stuff. And this doesn't mean you're just not having a life or anything, but it's just in the back of your mind. Everything you do is taking you towards your goals, even if it's relaxing. Like when I'm relaxing, it's because I need to relax. It's not just like I'm laying around doing nothing, not consciously doing anything. It's because I need to relax, and that's going to help me work harder tomorrow.
So, you know, focusing on your goals, or maintaining this focus on your goals, can sort of be the driving force in your life, and everything else sort of goes along with it.
Yeah, and having that soul purpose, which we'll talk about later, is just key, rather than having like a million things that you want to do. Just having that big soul focus. So that brings us to number 3, which is what I just talked about, is to achieve anything, you have to have a clear vision of what you want. And I think this goes into me as a high school kid and college kid. You know, I wanted to be a professional soccer player, but I never sat down and really had a clear vision of how I was going to get there, or what I really wanted out of my life. And now something that I do meticulously every single day when I wake up is to focus and visualize, what do I really want in my life? And it can change. And before you achieve anything, you need to know what you really want in your life. And this is a problem with a lot of people. They don't know what they want in their lives, and they never sit down and take the time to think about figuring out what they want and making it so clear. That's the first step. The more clear what you want is, the easier it is to achieve it.
How can we do this?
I think that, this is a tough one, because I think that everyone knows what they want deep at heart, but some people probably genuinely don't, because we live in a crazy world where you may be working, like friends I know, in a 9-to-5 job that you hate, and you just don't know what you can do. You love soccer, but you're 30 years old now, so you can't go play professional soccer. And I think that it's a journey of self-exploration. You got to kind of look inwards. You got to start doing things. You got to take the first step. You might not figure it out for 6 months, but you got to take the first step. And the first step can be improving your life. So I think your immediate goal, like something that I tell people is like kind of like a bulletproof, one size fits all purpose, is to become the best version of myself and like give my gifts fully to the world freely and be as free as I can be. And it's kind of like a one size fits all purpose. So you can start aligning your life around that, about being free and being your best self and being the happiest person you could be. And I think through that, you're going to figure out what it is you really want to do. And a lot of people know what they want to do, but they don't think they're allowed to do it. They're waiting for permission. And you just got to realize that you can do anything. You might need to have a side job for 2 years, and it's going to take a while, which we'll talk about later, but you can do it. And just getting out the pen and paper is good for this too. Write down on a piece of paper the ideal version of yourself. What are you doing? Who are you with? And everything in like 5 years. And just do this daily until you really fine tune it on what you want to do.
Yeah, that's good. Just it's not going to happen overnight, and just you have to start working at it. And you mentioned this one size fits all, approach. I think that's really good, because it can start building the momentum where everything will fall into place after that.
Yeah, because it's better than not doing anything, saying, oh, I don't know what I want to do. So in a year you come back and you're like, oh, I hate this job. What do I do? I haven't figured it out yet. I know so many people who do this, and it's like, I don't want to have the same conversation in a year, so you need to do something.
Yeah, just really embrace the idea that you're going to become the best version of yourself, and then you'll start to figure out the specifics as you're going, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this brings us to number 4, which is to stay motivated towards your goal. You must know why you want to achieve it. And the more deep you can get into this exploration of why you want to do this is so powerful, and it's so motivating, and it can be a deciding factor. So like if someone wants to, be like a pickup artist or something, I help a lot of people meet women. It's like, why do you want to do it? No one ever asks themselves why they really want to do it. And you really gotta, just the deeper you can get to find your why. Like a quote that I like is like, find the why that makes you cry is better, because it's just, it connects emotionally, and it's going to drive you towards your goals.
Yeah. So, something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah. If you don't have a why, if you don't know why you want to do something, then you're going to fizzle out. And
why do you do what you do?
Why? I mean, I just want to make the absolute most out of every day that I have on this earth, because I think it's such a gift, and I want to be the best I can be, and raise myself up to the point where I can raise up as many people as well around me, and just experience as much as I can experience, and give as much as I can give, and just live as much as I can, and help others do the same. That's why I want to do it.
Good answer.
Yeah. But all right, so I mean, that brings us to number 5, which is getting to more applicable stuff, which is goal setting. You should always set your big goals. So after you figure out what you want to do and you know why you want to do it, you should set your big 5-year, 10-year, 20-year goals. And I actually like what Lewis Howes teaches is he writes them down, he signs them, and he frames them and puts them on his wall. And I have the same things framed on my wall. Like I'm looking at one right now. It's like I'm going to be like the number 1 ranked like self-help teacher in the world, like January 1st, 2025. And I have another one like 100,000 visitors a day to MenProvement, like August 20th, 2016. And I've signed them and they're on my wall. And again, this is going to activate your reticular activating system, because you see it every day. And it's just instilling that inside of you. But you should never ever only have that goal and focus on that goal, because that's why people never really get what they want. So if someone's goal is to lose 50 pounds and they start the new year and they're like, all right, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. Like January 1st, I start. If that's their goal and they're not going to hit it for months, then this is why people don't achieve their New Year's resolutions and things, because it's unsustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So you should have your big goal, but you should only ever focus on what you can do today and on lifestyle changes and what you can do right now, even more specifically.
Yeah.
And having this mindset of your big goal, but then waking up and saying, all right, my goal today is just to not eat sugar, or to start exercising, to really focus on how you can change your lifestyle, not achieve that goal, but how you can change your lifestyle to naturally achieve that goal, and like focus on each day is key. So for me, it's like, all right, I'm obviously not going to focus on being like the next Tony Robbins today, because that's not going to happen for like years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what can I do today? Oh, I can self-educate, I can exercise, I can eat healthy, I can write a post, I can reach out to people. And these start to become habits and lifestyle changes, which is what number 7 is all about. But
Mm-hmm.
first we'll go to number 6, which is going to talk about your life's purpose. And it's that your life's purpose is what I believe makes you full in life, and that people are lost because they don't have a direction or purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it should come before anything in your life. And the reason I say this is because one of my favorite books is The Way of the Superior Man, and I think everyone should check it out.
Yeah, I'm currently reading that right now.
It instills in the person that your purpose is everything. And if you're like putting your work or your everyday duties and things before your purpose, and even your family before your purpose, then you're not being unselfish by doing that. You're actually being selfish by doing that, because by not living your purpose fully, then you're not able to really provide to the world and give your fullest potential to the world. So while you think that you're doing people a favor, you're actually doing them an injustice. And it was really powerful to me, and it's just, it doesn't really go beyond that, but it's just that your life's purpose, you living your potential and giving fully, should be before everything.
Yeah, it's about the bigger picture, right? The bigger picture of your purpose versus just getting caught up in the day-to-day, mundane aspects of life.
Yeah, you may think that you're doing your family a favor by staying in a loveless marriage for your kids and everything, and getting, letting your wife walk all over you. But at this point, if you're not living your purpose as a man, then your kids aren't going to respect you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not doing, you're not teaching them good values. It's never ending, the examples, but once you really grasp the concept, it's powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
And this brings us to, number 7, which brings apart what we were talking about before, is focusing on what you can do today, is that whether you succeed or not, only comes down to your habits. And if you can align your habits, your daily habits, towards your success, then over time you'll succeed no matter what. You don't have to think about it, because there's a lot of science behind this, and I know we could talk about this later, but 45% of what you do every single day is habitual, whether you like it or not. Even when your phone, you get a text message and you check it, that's a habit. Everything, almost, half of what you do. So if your habits and half of what you do are not fueling your goal and your vision and your purpose, then you're not going to succeed, because you can't focus on the big goal and get there by not doing every single day what it takes to get there over and over and over. And what you're doing those days are your habits. And eventually the key is to make every single day habitual. So not eating sugar, exercising, and working out, and all these things would be automatic habits for someone to try to instill who's trying to lose 50 pounds. And if you can instill those habits and make them automatic in your life, that you don't even have to think about them, then you're not going to have to worry about losing 50 pounds. It's going to happen automatically, and it's never going to come back.
So habits are sort of the foundation for everything else, right?
Yeah, as much as I study self-improvement and everything, it doesn't get applicably more basic than habits. Habits fuel your success. Habits will determine whether you succeed or not. It's like it is the core driving force behind everything.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about habits after we go through the rest of the principles.
Yeah, and number 8 is running off of your habits. Is that success? It comes down to reps and miles, and I love this because it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's quote in his latest book, Total Recall, and he's like, it doesn't matter. Nothing else really matters. You can visualize all you want if you're not putting in the reps and miles of what it takes to get there, the hard work, then you'll never get there. And really what it all comes down to is the reps and miles of the right things, and years and years and years and years of doing the right thing. So in his case, just working out day after day after day after day. Like, as much as I get better in my self-improvement practice and all this stuff, meditation and everything, and I go out to play soccer again, and I like to think that, like, oh yeah, I could still play at a professional level, and I do, because I think I can do anything. But if I'm not going out and practicing every day, I'm never going to do that, you know?
Yeah.
No matter how much I visualize it, no matter how much I believe I can, I'm never going to unless I'm actually doing the reps and miles of practicing every single day, over and over and over. And all it is the reps and miles of the habits. So the habits are the first most important part, and then it's all about just doing them every single day for the rest of your life.
Being consistent.
Yeah. It's really not like people sell you on things, and when they do, they're insulting your intelligence. If someone tries to give you a get rich quick scheme, or to a lose fast scheme, like a big weight loss cleanse, they're literally insulting your intelligence. They're calling you stupid because it doesn't work. It doesn't work because you can do a get rich quick scheme, but you'll be broke in 3 months once it all just crumbles, and you'll start at ground zero. You'll have nothing under your belt, and you can lose 10 pounds in a week, but you'll gain it right back because that's just the way it works.
Yeah, it's again, it's about the consistency, right?
Yeah, there's no shortcuts, and it's not fancy. If you want to be a bodybuilder, you just have to work out every single day, eat right, and learn, self-educate, and put in the reps and miles, as Arnold says. I love it. So number 9, along the way, you should never fear failure. And a lot of people don't get started towards their goals because they're scared of failing. But again, if I never started my first website, which was terrible, and failed at it, I would have never started my second website. I would have never learned what to do. And the more you fail along the way, the better. If you take 2 versions of yourself and one's failed 100 times and the other's has never tried, or they failed 1 time, the one who's failed 100 times is far superior and is probably far richer and far happier than the other one, because that's where you learn everything. Look at Thomas Edison. He says, people say I failed 10,000 times, because he did on all these inventions, but he says, I don't think I failed 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's just go out, almost go out and try to, like, don't worry about failing. I want to say try to fail, but like, don't try to fail, but don't worry about failing. Do anything, because if you fail, you're going to learn a lesson from it.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the learning process.
Yeah. And number 10 was be conscious of your edge and your limitations and live just beyond it. And this is another one from The Way of the Superior Man. And it's beautiful because it encompasses what I've been all about for the last 4 years. I was literally at a point of anxiety where I couldn't leave the house, and I had to be conscious of what I could do without stimulating my nervous system to set me back. So this spoke to me so much. So I would have to live just beyond my edge. So if going to the supermarket made me nervous, but I could do it, I would have to do it and do what made me nervous, but not insanely nervous to the point where it gave me a panic attack or something, and just continue to expand my comfort zone. And then it echoes on to every area of your life. No matter what, just being conscious of your edge puts you ahead of 99% of people. Like if you want to be better with women, I'll keep bringing this example up because it's a good one. You first need to be conscious of your edge and your limitations. What are your limitations? Are you really nervous when you need to approach girls, or what's stopping you? Is it because you live at home, or, are you embarrassed of what people think about you? And just becoming conscious of what your edge is.
Can you talk a little bit about what your edge actually is?
Right now?
No, just like in general, what the concept of the edge.
Yeah, well, your edge is kind of like your natural limitation. Like, if you were to want to become like, if you wanted to learn to meet women and be like a pickup artist or get better with women, but you were wildly scared of approaching them, that would be your edge, your limitations. Where are you where you're not comfortable.
So it's sort of your comfort zone.
Yeah, it's your comfort zone, it's your comfort bubble, and it has an edge. And then it has the outside of that edge is your very uncomfortable zone. So for me to go give a talk in front of 100,000 people, I would be pretty uncomfortable at first. And right now doing this, I'm kind of comfortable because I do a podcast. So I'm within my bounds.
Yeah.
And I'm probably flirting with my edge because I'm usually interviewing people. So when I first started podcasting, I was nervous. I was like, I want to do this. I know I'll be nervous doing it, but I'm going to live just beyond my edge. I'm going to do what makes me slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So if you're nervous about approaching women, you need to be approaching women every day. Every time you see one, you need to do what makes you slightly uncomfortable. It doesn't mean you need to go up and do something absolutely ridiculous and, stand on top of a podium in Times Square and get everyone's attention, because that's going to make you, there's no way you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So it's all about knowing your limitation, living just beyond it until that limitation becomes comfortable, and then reevaluating, knowing your next limit. Like, okay, now like commanding a crowd in the middle of Times Square would make me very uncomfortable. Like, and I'm going to do that until I can get comfortable doing that. So whatever you want to do, just continually expanding by living on the edge of your comfort zone.
So it's really about being aware of it and just pushing that comfort.
Yeah, being aware of it is key, and being aware of your limitations is something that people don't want to admit. But if you can admit your limitations, then you can conquer them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to acknowledge it and be aware of it so you can work on it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If you're living in denial and you think you're the man, like, no, I can do anything. No, you have an edge. Everyone does. And you need to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
All right. And 11 is a really powerful one that gets lost. And it's that success takes time. And it goes back to reps and miles. You can be doing everything right, but it takes a long time and a lot of trial and error and failure. And this is lost and forgotten in today's world because of, the nature of how fast we get everything. Instant messaging, weight loss cleanses, meals within a minute, fast food. And then success, people expect the same thing. They want to achieve their goals super fast. They start a blog and 90% of blogs fail because within 6 months, no one's making money and they quit. And if you look at history and every successful person, you look at Da Vinci, if you name Da Vinci to someone, they're like, oh, he's a genius. He painted the Last Supper. But what people don't understand is that he failed for like 15 years. He was constantly denied, and everything he did was just not genius status. And all he did every day was draw and invent and draw and think. Every single day he'd put the reps and the miles in of the habits that got him to where he is. And when he was 40 years old, he or something like that, he painted the Last Supper. But people just think he's a genius. And like, you can look at Nikola Tesla. He was broke and he was living at home when he was 30 years old. And Jim Carrey was homeless for years, living out of his truck, trying to get a role. And, he's a good example of your belief system and aligning your thoughts and actions, because every day he would go up to the top of the hill wherever he was in his truck and visualize being successful. And he truly believed he would be. And for years he wasn't. And he wasn't afraid of failure, and he put in the reps and miles and he got there. And in today's world, a good example of it is that I just learned about the other day is Angry Birds,
Oh, yeah.
I hear people all the time when we're talking about like how to get rich and stuff, just people who, aren't really into the self-improvement game. They're just like, oh yeah, man, the thing to do is to create an app. If you create an app like Angry Birds or something, like you're going to get rich fast. And I'm just like, that was their 40-something app. They made 40 apps before Angry Birds that weren't successful. Like, people are so delusional. They think they could just make an app that's going to be successful. Do you even know how to do it? Like, they had 40 apps before Angry Birds. They put in they put in the work. They put in
Yeah.
years, you know, and people, this does not translate because no one talks about the story or the journey. They just see the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's crazy. And this is like grasping this and playing what they call the long game and being committed to playing the 10-year long game and putting in your apprenticeships and putting in the time living at home and, you know, going to the conferences where no one knows your name and maybe dating the girl with the right father and all these things like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's what gets, it's, you know, it's necessary. There's no shortcut. There isn't. Even
Yeah, I
winning
think
the lottery.
yeah, this is a big one because I think, we're constantly bombarded with the idea of overnight success. It's all you see in the media, and it's all you people really, I think, want to talk about, and that probably trains the brain and the mind in some way that that's reality.
Yeah.
So I think you have to put the extra effort and energy in to realize that that's not the case, and go about it in the way that actually works. The long term game.
Yeah, even at the micro level, even like weight loss and like improving your body and getting smarter. You would try to take shortcuts. Everyone tries to take shortcuts, and it just takes you longer because you could take a shortcut for a month, and then you gain all the weight back. So in 2 months, you're probably way more than you were before. And if you just did everything right and ate healthy and limited your sugar and did it the right way, you could be 8 pounds lighter in 2 months, even 16 pounds lighter naturally. Like, so it's just a waste of time trying to take shortcuts, and just commit to the long game with whatever your goal, your purpose is, and stick it out.
Mm-hmm.
Number 12 is, for the reason that the long game is so long, you need to enjoy the process and you need to find joy in the journey. And it goes into a concept that I love that's called be, do, have. And the thing is that most people are living their life the wrong way. They're living it in have, do, be.
Mm-hmm.
So they think they need to have all these things or do what they want in order to be who they want to be. And it's flawed, and it will never get you there. For example, if you're in a job and you're unhappy and you believe that you need to have the higher position, or you need that raise, or you need the bigger apartment,
Mm-hmm.
or you need to do something to be happy, and you're just waiting, you're like, oh, I'll be good, I'll be happy and less stressed once I can afford that big apartment, or I'll be happy once I get that raise. You'll never be happy because you'll get that raise, and like what we're going to talk about in the last point is that nothing's ever complete. It's not going to stop. You're not going to suddenly be done and be happy. So the real way to do it is to flip it into be, do, have. And you need to be who you want to be right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the clear vision of what you want and who you want to be and your purpose in life. And you can't wait to have all the things that will allow you to be that person, because the real fast way to get there is to be that person now, and that will get you all the things. So be that happy guy at work, and you'll get that promotion. That's how it works.
Act accordingly, right?
Yeah. So for me, like, I'm visualizing what it feels like to be extremely successful and one of the like most well-known, like even like a best-selling author and like most well-known speakers in the world, and be in this huge New York City apartment daily. And I'm living that in the now, or in my mind, and then I'm coming back to the present, and I am that person. I'm that person already. That's what Jim Carrey did. He would visualize people shaking his hand, congratulating him on his roles. He wrote himself a check for like $10 million and dated it 3 years in the future, and he cashed that check 3 years in the future. He did that when he was broke. And because he was, I'm that person now. I don't have all those things yet, but they're coming.
Yeah, but
that's my mentality.
You're living like you are, that you have the mindset and you're acting that way, right?
Yeah, I'm that person already. I'm just a couple of years behind, and that's what I believe. I believe it to be so powerful, and everyone who's successful talks about how they got there and are still using it. But I use it now, and I believe I am that person, and I feel like that person, and just being like having that aura about you and being happy now and being fulfilled now without the big apartment and all that, it will allow it to happen so much easier. And if it doesn't, it's just going to make you happier, like, so it's like a win-win situation. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really powerful one. And number 14 and 15, which I kind of got in the wrong order before, or 13 and 14, are all about kind of like ways to live to achieve this. And so 14 is to pull all your happiness from within yourself and not seek happiness from outside validation or outside influences. So all your joy and happiness should come from within without any material goods or anything. And you should be fulfilled. You should be fulfilled from within. Fulfillment first is one of the most powerful things. And John Cooper talks about this when it comes into dating women. This is like a good example, is that a lot of guys, if you look at them, they're like a pie chart with a chunk missing, and they believe that getting the girl at the end of the night will fill their pie chart, will fulfill them.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes them needy, and it makes them flawed, and it makes them trying, which actually makes it really hard to get women.
Yeah.
When the real way is to be fulfilled first, to not need the woman, to be out having a good time and be giving fun, and you're the fun. You're the sun. That's the best example. Mm-hmm. You're the source of the fun. You're the source of the energy, and you're giving freely without expecting anything in return. And in turn, that's what everyone is attracted to, like the sun. The planets orbit around it. And so pull all your happiness from within and never seek validation from the outside world. Never need validation or someone to tell you that you're great, to believe you're great. So that's number 14. And number 15, that's number 13. And number 14, I got my notes all messed up. And number 14 is that you can't change the way you act by thinking, no matter how much we talked about visualization and all that. But you can change the way you think by acting through actions.
Definitely. This is a big one.
Yeah, and the perfect example is positivity and thinking positive, because one of the most powerful things you can do in your life, and to align your beliefs and all that, is to think positive and believe that you're going to achieve your goals.
Mm-hmm.
And the fastest way to believe that you're going to achieve your goals is to be taking action towards achieving them and doing everything you can.
Yeah.
Because if you're laying around on the couch and you say, okay, I need to believe that I'm going to achieve my goals, you're never going to truly believe it if you're not doing what it takes to get there. It doesn't, it doesn't make sense. But if you're out and you're hustling every day and you're working out, then you're like, I'm doing what it takes to believe my goals, so of course I'm going to get there.
Yeah, there has to be that congruency. And, the mindset, all of the mindset that we've been talking about is very important, but there has to be that congruency between your mindset and your thoughts and, your actions, what you're actually doing about it.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, I'm going to be more positive. I'm going to think positive. So, and then they eat a bag of chips, and they don't work out, and they watch porn and go to bed. You're never going to be like a positive, happy, positive thinking guy. But if you're going to the gym and you're eating vegetables and you're juicing daily, and you're doing what you want to do to achieve your goals, and you're getting one step closer every day, you don't have to try to think positive, because that's going to make you think positive, because you're going to know that you're going to get there because you're doing what it takes. So yeah, you have to believe that you're going to achieve your goals, but you have to be taking action to truly believe that. Mm-hmm. So that it's kind of like a back and forth thing, but it puts it all together, because that's where people get the law of attraction wrong. They just sit in their house and they visualize having this car, and then they just play video games, but it just doesn't work like that. You have to fulfill the circle. You have to complete the circle, and then amazing things can happen.
Mm-hmm. Believe and act.
Yeah, and that brings us to the last one, number 15, is throughout all of this, you should never seek to be complete. And this is another one from the Way of the Superior Man. Mm-hmm. And because if you do, it's like the be do have thing. If you're always waiting to be complete in order to relax, and be happy and be who you want to be, and you'll never get there, because you'll never be complete. Even if you achieve your big goal, then there's always going to be the next step, because if you're not growing, I believe that truly, then you're not living. And if you're not growing, you're dying,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So my goals, it's great. I could get 100,000 visitors a day to MenProvement, and I'm going to hit that goal. But it's not going to be like a stopping point. Yes, I hit my goal. Mm-hmm. Now I'm just going to sit around and do nothing. No, it's not going to make me complete. I'm just always growing. I'll never be complete. The journey is life, and
exactly,
it's everything. the goals and accomplishments are awesome, and you celebrate when you achieve them, but then you just keep living and moving forward. And that's the 15 core principles that I've just lived my life by now after the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's all very powerful stuff, and a lot of it is about the mindset, but the biggest, the foundation of it is the habits, right? And doing the reps and sets of the habits.
Yeah,
is
those
about
are
acting.
those are all the mindsets. Yeah, and if you look at it at the core molecular level, is that you can have all those mindsets, but then it's applicable action that brings results even through the mindsets, because the mindsets are what's helping you do what you need to do. And when you look at success and in anything, and you look at self-improvement, it can come down to one basic principle, and it's your habits. And I'd love to talk about everything I've learned about studying habits in the last 6 months, and creating my own habits and automating them to be subconscious and automatic, which is what truly makes you a machine. So
well, yeah, let's get into that. So talk a little bit about. I know you briefly went through why habits are important when you were talking about the principles, but talk about why habits are so important.
yeah, well, if you think about it, like successful people, they don't become successful by accident,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not referring to trust fund kids or people who win the lottery, because they're not successful, and a
No.
lot of them are like miserable and unfulfilled. But
Mm-hmm.
successful people like Richard Branson, like Mark Cuban, and all these people, even like bodybuilders, they don't become successful by accident. It doesn't just happen. There's a formula to it. And that's what I love, like the principles and all that, but I love the step-by-step formulas. Like, I guess it's like the analytical side of me, like,
Yeah, the engineer, right?
yeah, even though I'm like, I don't see myself as an engineer. I guess it kind of instilled something in me,
Yeah.
4 years of school. But yeah, like they don't become successful by accident. And every single day you're faced with dozens, if not hundreds, of micro decisions. And these micro decisions may seem extremely inconsequential right now, like running up to the kitchen and grabbing a handful of M&Ms. Like, that's a micro decision. It's not going to have consequences right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the caveat for a lot of people. That's their downfall, is because they don't realize that those micro decisions completely shape whether you're successful or not. They completely shape who you are in your life. Because if you take that small micro decision and you multiply it by 365, then you're going to be like, holy shit, I had 365 handfuls of M&Ms in the last year. That's going to have a big impact on your life. And multiply that bad micro decision times 50 for the day. And it's just, if you're making all these bad decisions over and over, small ones, that's why you're not progressing in life.
It starts to add up pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. It's cumulative. And that's like my parents always say to me with food, because like I eat like a freak, like extremely healthy, and I try to get them to eat healthy, and there's like, oh, everything in moderation, or we don't eat this very often. And I'm like, you say that today, but like it's like the small things like that like add up so much over time. It's insane.
Yeah, definitely.
But like I said before, 45% of what you do every single day is habitual. It's like proven. And a habit works in 3 stages. And it's very important to understand the stages if you are to program your habits, which is what I like to call it, and kind of get rid of the bad habits and put in the good habits. Okay. And it's the first stage is a stimulus. So we'll use like the cell phone, for example. Your cell phone dings. So there's a stimulus. And then there's your reaction. If the first time you heard a phone ding, you didn't know what it was, you wouldn't answer it, And then there's a reward. So you answer the phone and you get a reward. You see that your friend texted you and invited you to a party. So it's like, oh, cool. Like, now I know. So now every time your phone rings, you want to see who texted you, It's a very simple example, but if you checked your phone the first time after it dinged and it buzzed you and shocked you, you wouldn't do it the next time because there's no reward.
Yeah.
So even these small habits that sabotage you, like eating candy and cake, they have rewards because of the dopamine and the opiate spikes in your brain, and how good they make you feel immediately after eating them. So they have reward, even though in the long term they don't. So it's very important. So in order to
having the foresight to realize the long-term effects, right?
Yeah. So hacking your habits is extremely powerful. So it takes time, but in the next 3 months, you can completely swap all your bad habits for good ones. And so there's a bunch of steps to this. And the first one in my mind is to become, like you just said, is to become consciously aware of your bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I like to say is you should be constantly asking yourself throughout the day, am I living my truth? And this is really powerful. And I learned this from Brendan Burchard. And he has an exercise where he writes down 3 words. He says, write down 3 words of who you want to be. So mine are like bold, actionable, prepared, and present. So it's 4 words. So that's who I am to me. Like, that's who I want to be. And then you write down 3 things you want to be in other people's eyes. So like inspiring, motivating, and caring.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout the day, you know what you want to be. You know the words that describe you. And then you can simply ask yourself, like, am I living my truth right now? And if you can truly answer yes, then that's great. But if you're sitting around or you're like watching TV, which is fine. I'm not talking about like watching TV to decompress and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I watch TV all the time, and I have to, or else you go crazy. But like if you're sitting around and you're watching Netflix and you haven't got off the couch in like 2 days, and if you say, am I living my truth? And you did everything that we talked about before, you're clearly not living your truth. And that's going to get you off your ass. So, but like this just goes into becoming consciously aware, like asking yourself throughout the day, why am I doing this? And more importantly, how does this serve my purpose, what I'm doing right now? So if I'm doing something, if I'm watching TV, I'd still ask myself this. I'm like, how does this serve my purpose? Oh, well, I'm decompressing, and it's, I need to relax because I just worked for 9 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to help me feel better and wake up refreshed tomorrow. And if I'm meditating, obviously, how does this serve my purpose? It serves my purpose because it's making me more conscious and everything. So just constantly being consciously aware. So when you're doing something that doesn't serve your purpose, you need to be consciously aware. And then you need to start to program these bad habits out, the ones that aren't serving your purpose. So snacking or biting your nails and things like this, you need to consciously. So how does this snacking serve my purpose of wanting to lose weight? It doesn't. So you need to figure out how you can eliminate it. And the first step is to eliminate the triggers. And again, becoming consciously aware of your triggers is the next step. So when you become consciously aware of doing something, you need to think like, what made me do this? Is it stress, or is it emotion, or is it boredom? So these triggers, and you can do this. You can write them out and you can put them on your wall, like my triggers. And then you need to eliminate your triggers. So if your triggers for stress eating and watching porn or things that you're trying to stop doing are boredom, then you got to stop being bored. You got to fill your life with more exciting activities.
Mm-hmm.
So becoming consciously aware of your triggers and removing the triggers, removing the stress. If stress is what makes you bite your nails or eat, removing the stress in your life is key, because without the trigger, you're not going to do what the trigger causes. So becoming, starting to meditate and starting to learn how to reduce stress would be something that you would do. So the next step to lose these bad habits is to replace them instead of just trying to lose them, because you can't just eliminate something. You can't just stop smoking, because you're going to have the trigger when you're stressed. And if you don't replace it with a good habit, then you can't just do nothing, because it's willpower doesn't really work. There's like science on this. You can definitely build up willpower and it gets stronger over time. But for the average person, it's not enough to stop them from doing the things they want to do, which is why people have trouble quitting.
Yeah.
But instead, if like every time you got stressed out, you were like, all right, I'm not going to smoke. I'm going to go for a jog, or I'm going to meditate, or something like this. Replacing with a good habit is key. So how do you do that? How do you replace something with a good habit? That's the next step, is replacing it with the good. And the first part of that is a method called habit stacking. And essentially what this is stacking habits that you already, or stacking good habits that you want on habits that you already have. And
Okay.
they could be good habits, and they could be bad habits. So an example of a good habit would be getting into bed every time you want to go to sleep. That's a habit. You don't just go to sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
If you want to do something really powerful, like practice gratitude, which is one of the biggest secrets to success and happiness of powerful people,
Mm-hmm.
you could say, okay, every time I get into bed, I'm gonna write down 5 things I'm grateful for on a pad that's right next to my bed. So you start stacking this new habit on an already formed habit. And you can do it for the bad as well. So like I help men quit watching porn who are addicted to it. And I say, I tell them, okay, so you get this trigger, you're bored or you're anxious, so you watch porn. That's your habit. It's a habit. And you get the reward. But so now every time you feel the urge to do this bad habit, why don't you do 100 push-ups instead? And just stacking a bad habit or a good habit on top of this bad habit and replacing it is powerful because you already know the triggers. You already have the habits in place. So you can stack new ones on it. So it's easier for good habits and things like this. Like when you're brushing your teeth, you can start flossing and things like this. Just take, it's all about like really being consciously aware, writing down the habits you have now and being diligent about it and saying, all right, what do I want? What do I want to do? Like what you need to know what you want to do, obviously, with your goals, and then say, what habits do I need to adopt to make these goals a reality? So if you want to lose weight, then the habits you need to do are healthy eating, exercising, self-educating about fitness and how your body works. And the bad habits you need to eliminate are snacking and not working out and negative self-talk and things like this. So it's just being aware and then start stacking your good habits on already good habits or bad habits. So again, every time there's a commercial on TV, you can do 10 push-ups, like something like this. Just taking something that happens already in your life and adding another habit. And what will help do this is the next step, which is start small. And this is key. You know, I mentioned doing 100 push-ups every time you wanted to watch porn, and that's tough. But if you wanted to build the habit of exercising daily, there's a lot of experts out there that talk about literally starting so small that you can't fail, to the point of doing just one push-up every morning. For a month. And at first I was like, oh, this is kind of weird, but it works because the way a habit works is that you do something and you feel good about it. So you're going to feel good after doing that push-up. Like, yeah, I got it done for the day. And your brain's going to create neural pathways and wiring points that are going to associate with that. And after a month, or, you know, no one really knows exactly how long, but after 60 days, it's going to be a habit, and you're going to wake up and you're going to want to work out. And I've solidified that habit in meditation and cold showers. And even if I don't feel like doing it, somehow I always end up doing it. It's like crazy. After,
because you've built the habit already, right?
Yeah, I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, I kind of just feel like working, but then I'll go upstairs and be like, all right, yeah, I'll do that. And I'm in the shower. And when I'm in the shower, I'm like, I don't really feel like meditating. Like a lot of times I do, but then by the time I'm dressed, I'm like, wow, I really feel like meditating now. Like it's like, it's crazy. So starting so small. So if you wanted to start the habit of meditation, you could start meditating with just 5 minutes a day for 2 months. And once it's a habit, once it's a small habit, like once you do a push-up every day, automatically you get out of bed, you stretch and you just do your push-up, then you could start doing more push-ups in 2 months or 1 month, and you can start running, and you can just add on to this already created habit. And the next trick is to shape your environment. And this is key, because if you want to lose weight, having an environment with junk food in your cabinets and bowls of M&Ms on the counter and, you know, things like this is just, it's going to propel your bad habits. So shaping your environment is so key. So for example, if you wanted to lose weight, you would get rid of all your junk food. You would buy really healthy food. You would, every Sunday, you could cut up veggies and you could pre-cook chicken and things like this. So when you do want to snack, you have things like this. You have nuts laying around to snack on instead of M&Ms. And every night before you go to bed, you lay out your workout clothes. So when you wake up, it's a lot easier for you to work out. You have posters on your wall of people who are in shape and things like this. And you have magazines in the bathroom about fitness. You're shaping your environment completely to associate your goal and to build these good habits upon. And it goes into anything. Whatever your goal is, you need to be creative and figure out how you can shape your environment to eliminate the bad habits and keep the good ones. And
Yes.
Go ahead.
So it's, you know, basically creating this awareness of the habits that you have and the triggers for those habits. And, you know, then, like you said, stacking these habits or maybe replacing the bad habits with good habits, and then shaping your environment so that it's conducive to the good habits.
Yeah, exactly. And starting small if you need to. Yeah. So those are essentially, those are kind of the first 3 starting points. And then there's 3 more. So the next is to first adopt core habits that kind of propel everything else and things roll off of. So for example, is exercise. And so if you're very unhealthy dude and you don't have good habits and you're just not succeeding in your life, one of the first habits you can do is something like exercise and meditation. Because what this is going to do is it's going to propel everything else off of it. You know the feeling when you exercise in the morning. Then you're like, oh, I feel great and I don't feel like eating shitty. Like you see that Twinkie and you're like, nah, I'm going to go for the healthier option. I'm going to make oatmeal or I'm going to make eggs. And you're clearer. You can think clearer. So you're less stressed. So your stress-induced habits will be less prevalent. And if you're meditating, it's the same exact thing. So these core habits, there's like 5 of them. There's meditation, exercise, practicing gratitude, self-education, and I can't even think of the other one, but there's just these core habits that are just going to help these small habits, the goal-oriented habits, like picking up women, like approaching every hot girl you see, that much easier. Because if you exercise during the day and you feel good about yourself and you see a pretty girl and you meditated, you're less stressed, you can deal with your anxiety better, you're going to be able to do that habit better. So adopting like I named 4 principal habits first and getting those solidified in your life will totally shift your life, and the bad habits will melt away and the good habits will be a lot easier to keep. And then
this is a big one, and it's something that I've seen in my own life, getting these very fundamental habits right is going to make it so much easier to do everything else because of how the effect they have on your body and your mind and all of that.
Yeah. And then the second to last one is to make your habits identity based. And I picked this up from James Clear in one of his books. And it's to say like, okay, instead of just saying you're going to try to work out as a habit,
yeah,
you can create an identity around it. So instead of being like John, who is out of shape but he's going to try to start working out, that's very likely to fail. But if you really create the identity of, okay, like I'm John, I'm a CrossFitter and I'm an exercise enthusiast who loves taking his body to the limit, and you really encompass that in your life and you become that person, then that's just a part of your identity is working out. You're an exercise enthusiast, you're a fitness junkie. This is who you are. So you just work out. It's just what you do, like it's so powerful to just try to create an identity around what you want to do. And it part of it is what we talked about before. When you visualize your success, imagine being the person you want to be and then come back and be him now. So I'm even if I'm not like the best with women right now, like I picture being amazing with women, I come back, I'm that dude, I see a girl, I'm just the kind of guy that approaches girls. It's not like I'm going to try to approach these girls. No, I am I am someone who approaches women. It's making these habits identity based is huge.
It's kind of like fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, just encompass who you want to be. Become that person, become that identity.
Yeah, be that person now.
Exactly, it is. Yeah, I guess you could say it's fake it till you make it, which is strong. But the last one is again, it comes full circle, is to focus on your lifestyle changes rather than your monumental movements. So you're not going to focus on the habit of losing 50 pounds and losing weight. You have your big goal, but all you can do is focus on your lifestyle changes. Make the habits of not eating sugar, make the habits of drinking water instead of drinking soda, and then get your core habits in and focus on really changing your lifestyle. So instead of just losing 50 pounds, try to become a healthy liver, someone who works out, who meditates, who eats healthy, and just do this each day and just focus on each day. Like that's your goal for today. And you may fail a little bit that day and then you start fresh tomorrow. You got your new day to try to be 100%. And it's all right if you fail, because eventually you're going to get it. And that pretty much sums up how to hack your habits. And if you can hack all your habits are based on your big goal and the clear vision of what you want, and you multiply that times reps and miles and years and playing the long game, then you can become whoever you want to be. It's incredible. There's nothing going to stop you. There's no way you're not going to get to your goal if you're doing it. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's some powerful stuff. And exactly like what we said earlier is that habits are the foundation for creating everything else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you can get them right, then everything else is going to follow.
Well, yeah, because the thoughts, it's habits, thinking positively, and visualizing who you want to be, and writing the goals on your wall, and all the stuff we talked about earlier, the principles, they're all habits as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
like everything. Habits is just the basis of everything. And the key is to automate them and make them subconscious. So like you have so many subconscious habits now, like you don't even realize you're biting your nails. Imagine you didn't even realize when you were doing things that made you successful. And so success becomes automatic, and then you don't have to think about doing them. I don't have to think about meditating. I don't have to think about cold showering. I don't have to think about self-educating, because at some point during the day, I'm going to put my headphones on and listen to a podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like every time I get in the car, like an amazing habit, I don't put the radio on. I put a podcast on. I'm not listening to the morning show. Sometimes music is cool because you need to just relax and get into flow, but I'm not listening to the morning show on when I was going to work. Like an hour to work, an hour back, I was listening to 2 podcasts. Multiply that times a year versus the morning show for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one you who was listening to podcasts would blow the other one away with knowledge. Like it's unbelievable. So yeah, all those habits, like positive self-belief and your thoughts, it's all habits, everything.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
One thing I don't think that we mentioned is, the initial investment of energy and effort that it takes to build the habits. That goes away, and once you have the habits formed, everything is so much easier, and then you have these good habits, such as exercise and meditation in place, that become effortless. You don't really require much energy to do them once the habit is formed, and then those good habits give you more energy to do all these other things.
Yeah. And then, yeah, because your brain doesn't have to think about it anymore. Your brain can think about other stuff and,
Mm-hmm.
expanding. It's really incredible. Yeah. The automation process is just time. It's just doing your habits day in and day out. And the science shows that if you miss a day, it's not a big deal. So don't freak out if you miss a day of your habits, but start small, encompass who you want to be now, know who you want to be, do what we said before, write it down, visualize who you want to be and your success, live as that person now in the reality that you're in now. So you'll attract that towards your life. Shape your environment, the way you live around those habits. Start being conscious aware of your bad habits, get rid of them, and start smallly putting good habits into your life until they become easier. Then you can add on to them and just keep them, become identity based and become that person and put in the reps and miles. It doesn't get any simpler really than that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sean. So this has been
A
pretty
long
powerful so far, what we've covered. I think we're coming up towards the end of our time here. One
Yeah.
thing I want to ask you before we close out is, what's one of the biggest, or maybe not the biggest mistake you've ever made, but what's a big mistake that you've made in your life in general, and what did you learn from it so that maybe others can learn from your mistake?
Yeah, well, that's one thing about mistakes is that, sometimes they can be your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look back and I try to think of like mistakes I made, yeah, there's plenty. Like as a kid, like not really knowing what I wanted to do, or like believing that things would just happen without doing it. And then, not pursuing my professional soccer career that I wanted to. And you could say eating that weed brownie was a mistake, but all these mistakes, they've all taught me so many lessons, and they are the reason that I am who I am today. So I don't almost see them as mistakes. I see them as gifts, and I wouldn't change them for the world. But one thing I would say is a mistake that I was guilty of for a few times in the last 4 years is regret,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't serve you whatsoever. And I didn't gain anything from that regret, but for years I regretted doing things and not being a professional soccer player and making the choices that I made. But the choices that I made have made me, and that regret is wasteful. So if you're regretting things in your life that you can't change, you're living in a world that no longer exists, and it just takes away from the world you live in now.
What did you do to, I guess, let go of that regret?
Oh man, it's just self-awareness and self-exploration, and
Mm-hmm.
it was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. It was truly encompassing all these beliefs that I talk about, and being grateful for being here and learning. I guess at first I didn't realize that they, you can't go back, and the mistakes are what really makes you and helps you grow. And without mistakes and failures, you would be nothing. and without moving forward and living while you're living in the past, you can't move forward. So it was just that realization and continually beating that into my head and making it a habit of not regretting and being grateful for where I am. That really, it kind of eventually just became part of me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like doing everything that we've talked about in the whole process of, working on yourself and improving yourself, that the regret kind of went away as
Yeah.
a sort of a side effect of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for everything, Sean. I think we covered some pretty powerful information here, that people can learn a lot from this. Is there anything else that you'd like to close out with here?
No, I mean, I'm so grateful to be on here as well, and I hope that people can get a lot out of this, and I really do. If anyone's listening, there's just one thing you could know is that you can truly accomplish anything, and don't care what anyone says, because you might get ridiculed at first for trying, but I think a lot of people are just self-conscious that they're not making the effort when they see you doing things that you want to do, and just go for it. Go for your big goal. What do you have to lose? You only live once, and it may seem far away, but in 10 years, you can be whoever you want to be if you just start today and focus on each day.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I'm sorry this went so long. It was really long. An hour and 40 minutes. Probably an hour and a half. For my senior year, I actually ended up at a party, and I ingested a brownie laced with weed, and it gave me like a 5-hour long panic attack where I felt like I lost my mind. Like I never smoked or anything, I never did drugs or anything.
Yeah.
So this sent me into a world that like I would never wish upon my worst enemy. I can't even explain it, but what this did was it set my amygdala, which is the part of your brain that controls your fear and anxiety, into a permanently stuck on position. And I already had OCD and repetitive obsessive thoughts and everything. So coupled with that, I was literally for the next 6 months after that, I was pretty much unfunctional. I almost didn't go back to school. I was on multiple medications just to survive. I started having panic attacks all the time, and I was just foggy minded all the time. I couldn't think straight. I was so messed up. Like I can't even, just talking about it makes me quiver. I can't even explain it, because no one who hasn't been through anything like that would ever really get it. And it sounds weird just saying it right now, but long story short, I'm not going to go into the details, but I ended up for the next 3 years just having this ridiculously ruthless anxiety disorder. And it got to the point where I couldn't leave my house at one point, and I was on all these medications, and I actually went back to school right after. And somehow I got through school. No one knew anything was wrong with me.
Okay, Sean. So first, talk a little bit about your story and how you got into the world of self-development.
Yeah, man, it's actually it's a pretty wild story, and I'll go back to the start from growing up. I was always a pretty talented kid in sports and stuff. I had a lot of friends, and I had a pretty privileged life, you would say. But I always had underlining anxiety and OCD that no one really knew about. So my whole life I was pretty into self-improvement and stuff, but I never really had a clear vision of what I wanted, and I never really lived past the moment like a lot of people do in their lives. So I was kind of just getting by because of like who I was, and just because I was a friendly kid. I was good at sports, and I never really had to go out of my way to achieve anything per se. And I never really lived up to my potential. So actually at the age of 17, I could have went professional in England to play soccer. And I kind of just wanted to go to college and party because that's what I was all about. I was all about just living in the moment. I had no clear vision of my goal. I thought that, yeah, one day I'm going to be a professional soccer player, but I didn't know how I was going to get there or anything. And like I said, I had this anxiety and OCD in my head, so I was very, very introverted. So I was kind of always in my own world, I guess you could say, like borderline autistic, but like I never really was diagnosed for anything, but I've always been very introverted and in my head, while others are more outward. But
yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, and so it kind of put me in my own little world of like never, just being completely in the moment, which is cool. But as we'll talk about later, it can really get you into a bunch of trouble in the end. So I went to college instead. I obviously went to play soccer too. It's a pretty good school, Division I, and I played for 4 years, but I was just caught up in partying and girls, and I didn't really think about anything, and I had no interest in my major, which was mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
So I was that kid that was just getting by. And I even remember one teacher, she said to me, she was like, I'm worried about you because you don't pay attention in class, but you get good grades. And what are you going to do when you graduate? And I never thought about it like one time. I never thought what I was going to do when I graduated. I just thought it would all work out. And, eventually, as you know it, life threw me a curveball. So this is where the story gets a little weird and kind of unique. Is when I was a senior in college, right before, I'd say about 2 years ago, is when I made that decision to take control of my life. And I knew.
Was there anything that triggered that, or did you just one day wake up and say, I'm tired of this?
I was constantly always trying to heal, and this is why I became so obsessed with self-improvement, is I was constantly researching new ways and trying new like drugs and medicines, but I was still drinking and partying, and my hangovers got to the point that if I drank the night before even 3 beers, I would wake up and be shaking and my vision would be blurry, and I couldn't even get out of bed because my nervous system was just so messed up. And so I decided to heal myself, and it was about 2 years ago. And so I just dropped everything and I started to move forward. And about 6 months after that, I ended up having another massive panic attack, like just walking. I guess it was kind of like all the stress from the last 4 years and everything, or I guess it was 2.5 years at this point, just all accumulated. Even after quitting drinking and everything, it just all hit me at the same time, because at this point, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I got a job at a mechanical engineering firm.
Yeah.
And I was working my ass off at this mechanical engineering firm because I had that degree, and I was a mess, like I was just always in my head, like just trying to act normal, but I was anxious all the time. And I was drug free at this point, wasn't on any anxiety medication because I knew that wasn't going to help me.
Yeah.
So I guess going cold turkey off of that, going cold turkey off of drinking, and everything, just kind of everything caught up to me.
Yeah.
And at this point, I got shingles. I kind of put on a pretty face from the outside, smiled, and just was in like a nightmare inside my own head. So it was pretty traumatic. And throughout my recovery, I was just continuing to try to party and be who I was before. I was really trying to hold on to who I was. I was still playing soccer, but eventually it came down to it was like I finished school, I moved back home, and I guess a year later I was just still a mess. And I decided at that moment, it was just like one day I decided, I was like, I'm not who I was before. I'm not going to keep trying to be who I was before. So I put down, I just stopped with everything. I stopped drinking. I stopped, I even stopped watching porn and stuff. And I started eating ridiculously healthy. And I was like, I just said to myself that I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to do anything it takes. And this is important because I never, ever for a second during this whole experience, even like the month after when I was in and out of the ER, because I was just like, my world was like falling apart.
Yeah.
I never once dropped the belief that I was going to be better and that this was going to be like the best thing that ever happened to me, and like I was going to turn it into a positive. And
Yeah, that's huge.
I don't know where that comes from, but it was just instilled in me, maybe from playing sports my whole life. And it's just, I just never didn't have that attitude. I always believed growing up that I was going to be like the best soccer player in my town and in my school. And I always believed when this happened that I was going to overcome it. So, I'd say